Hello friends, how are you all? I hope you all have enjoyed our previous session on urbanism as way of life and also have further explored about the contributions of Patrick Geddes. Today's session we will try to discover a very new dimension of urban sociology and a very innovative theoretical perspective of urban phenomenon. We will try to understand it in terms of networking, in terms of political economy as well as in terms of cultural economy. The evolving urban phenomenon should also be understood. That is why I said it should be understood in terms of networking of relationships based on information, emerging and evolving spatial forms and cultural aspects of the economy. In this session, we will try to understand what Manuel Castells talks with regard to network and information society, what is culture economy as proposed by Pierre Bourdieu, and what does Anthony Giddens say about city and spatial forms. Manuel Castells is a professor of sociology and city and regional planning at University of California, Berkeley. His early academic works were built on the structural analysis of capitalism and social movements. It was in response to the contradictions of the capitalist society without any obvious connection to network analysis for which he became synonymous at later stages of his works. Networks gradually appeared in Castells' work in late 1980s when he became interested in the configuration of the relationships between technology, economy and society, which was his opus magnum. During 1990s, Castells brought and developed a theory which is widely known as theory of nets. That is, in his opinion, the contemporary global society is a network society which exists and whose praxis takes place in the age of information, that is, the age where collecting, managing and manipulating information is of key importance. Castells defines networks as sets of interconnected nodes which process financial and other value flows with the help of new technologies. They are self-configurable, complex structures of communication and power which cooperate and compete internally and externally according to interests expressed within the nodes using ultimately a binary logic of inclusion and exclusion. They have the capability of self-renewal in the sense that they may introduce new actors and content as conditions change. Their dynamic nature makes them flexible, scalable, survivable, which are needed in continuously changing techno-economic environment. If you try to understand in terms of definition, networks do not have one center but are characterized by binary logic, that is inclusion, exclusion and decentralized structures and decision making patterns. And all these things is mentioned in Castells' written book in 1996. Castells also assumes that technological development is the most important individual precondition for the research of networks. He supports his view with a claim that the emergence of networks as an efficient form of social organization is the result of three features that have proved their usefulness in the emerging techno-economic environment. They are flexibility, scalability and survivability. Castells also present the idea of knowledge society, which implies the significance of both education and skills in the capitalism of today. In the case of characteristics of city, in the age of information, Cassels writes that a city of information is an urban expression for an entire pattern of information society determinants, just like an industrial city is a spatial expression of an industrial society. Cassels presents that we are passing from an industrial age into the information age. This historical change is brought about by the advent of new information technologies, particularly those for communication and biological technologies. Society remains capitalist, but the basis of the technological means by which it acts has changed from energy to information. This information is of central importance in determining the economic productivity. Communications technologies allow for the annihilation of space and for globalization. So, the potential for rapid and asynchronous communication also changes the relationship to time. And while he explains that networks are not a new form of social organization, they have become a key feature of social morphology. Why this is happening? This is because communication technologies such as the internet allow for decentralization of operations and focusing of control, increasing the effectiveness of networks relative to hierarchical structures. He says shift can be characterized as the shift from vertical bureaucracies to the horizontal corporation. The ability of an actor in the network, be it a company or an individual or a government or other organization, to participate in the network is determined by the degree to which the node can contribute to the goals of the network. This new environment requires skilled and flexible workers. The organization man gives way to the flexible woman. This leads to a binary process of inclusion and exclusion from the network. The people at the bottom are those who, with nothing to offer the network, are excluded. Cassel says that despite the disappearance of capitalists and proletariat is our working class, exploitation and differentiation remain. In Cassel's analysis, labor is fundamentally divided into networked labor, which serves the goals of the network, and switched off labor, which has nothing to offer the network, and in the context of network economy is non-labor. That is not to say their labor has no value, but the realm of discarded labor is also the realm of criminal organizations outside the networks. Cassels mentions that networks can make perverse use of these masses of people. Network labor is itself divided into two groups: self-programmable labor, such as financial analysts, company officers, journalists, who manage information. It is flexible and skilled. Its interests coincide with the goals of the network. Generic labor, including many workers in natural resource manufacturing and service industries, also minimum wage and sweatshop labor, is de-skilled, interchangeable and disposable. For these people, the goal is simple survival so as not to be relegated to the class of switch-off irrelevant labor. Cassels is also talking about flows versus places and the role of the nation state. Cassels' examination of space is central to his work. So, one of his key special characterization of the information is the space of flows. This is the domain of networks, of capital, of information, of business alliances, etc. He argues that while organizations are located in places, the organizational logic is placeless, being fundamentally dependent on the space of flows that characterizes information networks. This space of flows challenges what Cassels calls the space of places, including regional communities and nation states. Networks lead to the destruction of human experience. Power is separated from political representation, production from consumption, information from communication. In opposition to the space of flows is the space of places. While the space of flows can be abstract in social, cultural and historical terms, places are condensations, they are concrete elements of human history, culture and matter. Hence, the resistance to the space of flows of the networks arises in the form of communities oriented around places. These communities are often closed based on fundamentalist or tribal identities. Those dislocated or excluded by the network society, such as unneeded labor, naturally gravitate to such identities of communal resistance or are relegated to them. Elites are cosmopolitan, people are local. This clash between the flows and places has consequences for the nation state. Sovereignty is ceded both upwards to the space of flows and downwards to the regional and communal groups. He thus asserts that nation states will survive, but not so their sovereignty. It is clear that cities have throughout history been the seed beds of innovation in cultural, economic and technological terms in every possible aspect, and ultimately the seed beds of information. So, it is not so surprising that in the information age, an age based on information, knowledge, processing of symbols, generation of ideas, cities are the centers of this new economy and of this new cultural capacity. Cassels saw the city as an arena for social conflicts, ultimately emanating from the class divisions within the capitalist society. Pierre Bourdieu was born to a working class family in a small village in southern France. Bourdieu's works have been translated in over 24 languages, and many are already considered classics in disciplines across social sciences and humanities. Not only sociologists but also those in anthropology, cultural studies and education consider Bourdieu required reading for anyone trained in their disciplines. Bourdieu understands of sociology as a combat sport that critically takes on and exposes the underlying structures of social life, has also had a strong impact on the academic field, particularly in his home nation of France. Cultural capital. Like Karl Marx, Bourdieu argued that capital formed the foundation of social life and dictated one's position within the social order. For Bourdieu and Marx both, the more capital one has, the more powerful a position one occupies in social life. However, Bourdieu extended Marx's idea of capital beyond the economic and into more symbolic realm of culture. Bourdieu's concept of cultural capital refers to the collection of symbolic elements such as skills, tastes, posture, clothing, mannerisms, material belongings, credentials, etc., that one acquires through being part of a particular social class. Sharing similar forms of cultural capital with others, the same taste in movies, for example, or a degree from Ivy League school creates a sense of collective identity and group position. People like us. When we have a common background, we get a feeling that people like us. But Bourdieu also points out that cultural capital is a major source of social inequality. Certain forms of cultural capital are valued over others and can help or hinder one's social mobility just as much as income or wealth. Habitus is a mental or cognitive structures through which people deal with social world. People are endowed with series of internalized schemes through which they perceive, understand, appreciate and evaluate social world. It is through such schemes that people both produce their practices, perceive and evaluate them. It is also the physical embodiment of cultural capital to the deeply ingrained habits, skills, dispositions that we possess due to our life experiences. Bourdieu often used sports metaphors when talking about the habitus, often referring to it as a feel for the game. Habitus also extends to our taste for cultural objects such as art, food and clothing. In one of his major works, Distinction, published in 1979, Bourdieu links French citizen tastes in art to their social classes positions, forcefully arguing that aesthetic sensibilities are shaped by the culturally ingrained habitus. Field is a network of relations among the objective positions within it. Bourdieu understood the social world as being divided up into variety of distinct arenas or fields of practice like art, education, religion, law, and each with their own unique set of rules, knowledges and forms of capital. While fields can certainly overlap, education and religion, for example, overlap in many religiously based colleges and universities, Bourdieu sees each field as being relatively autonomous from the others. The British social theorist Anthony Giddens, he developed a theoretical structure that explains human agency, what is it? Action, in the context of social structure and integrates action and structure. In this approach, termed as structuration theory, Giddens argues that human agency and social structure are not two separate concepts or constructs, but these are together produced by social action and interaction. In social science, agency is defined as the capacity of individuals to act independently and to make their own free choices. By contrast, when we talk about structure, structure are those factors of influences such as social class, religion, your gender, ethnicity, ability, customs that determine or limit agents and their decisions. Anthony Giddens explores a very delicate relationship between structure, that is external forces, and agency, that is the actor's internal motivations in society. He specifies that structure and agency cannot be separated, that they are connected to one another in what Giddens has termed the duality of structure. Human actors are the elements that enable creation of our society structure by means of invented values, norms, or are reinforced through social acceptance. Yet, at the same time, people are constrained by our social structure. Globalization has been one of the most well-known phenomena to be taking place around the world today, with only a couple of exceptions. The number of ways it has affected our daily routines has been enormous, even if you don't agree with its externalities. The marketplace used to be the hub of personal interaction and trade, while in modern societies, the process has moved into computers and mobile phones. People are unconsciously or subconsciously covering the virtual space and time by always being connected to a source of communication at many times of the day. The virtual space that we cover by shopping, talking, or trading via different kinds of technology, including global technology, is now dually connected to our daily activities with respect to the physical space and time we exist in. Giddens' duality of structure illustrates this separation in time and space that is very crucial to geographic studies very well. Anthony Giddens makes these points about the emerging cities of industrialism. Modern urban settlements often incorporate the sites of traditional cities and may look as though they have merely grown out of them. In fact, modern urbanism is ordered according to quite different principles from those which set off the pre-modern city from the countryside in prior periods. The modern society can be distinguished from the pre-modern society on several counts. Modern society is much more dynamic compared to the pre-modern society. In the modern society, pace, intensity and scope of change are greater. This is what Giddens is trying to point out. Another important feature is the type and nature of modern institutions. The major characteristics of our civilization are nation state, the modern political system, hyper-mechanized and hyper-technological production methods, wage labor, commodification of all relations including the workforce and urbanization. In fact, Giddens' entire analysis of modernity can be understood by these aspects. Firstly, time and space separation. Second aspect is disembedding mechanisms, and the third aspect is the reflexive character of modernity. Giddens says that in the modern society there has been standardization and globalization of time. This enables people to interact with each other and the surrounding world without problems. Not only the concept of time but also the concept of space is changing. Each new technological development expands our space significantly. The fact that we can be in the same space but not the same locale is one of the driving forces behind the modern rational organization. Social institutions such as family, kin, education and politics were earlier integral parts of the local society. The local society thus survived through ages with these institutions, but with the coming of modernization, these institutions got disembedded from the local society or community. Reflexivity helps us to explain all human action. Reflexivity is the regular use of knowledge which institutions and individuals continuously collect and apply to organize and change society. Corporations perform market surveys to help them devise sales strategies. This increased reflexivity is facilitated by the development of mass communication. Giddens, therefore, making an attempt to analyze different dimensions of modernity like capitalism, industrialism, coordinated administrative power focused through surveillance and military power. Giddens considers modernity as multidimensional. Taken together, however, they provide a framework for understanding some of the central features, developments and tensions in modern societies. Giddens lists 4 risks that are specific to the late modern world. These are state surveillance, escalation of military power, collapse of economic growth and ecological and environmental limits that constrain capitalism. Friends, in this session with regard to urban sociology, we have tried to understand the contributions and perspectives of different thinkers like Pierre Bourdieu, Anthony Giddens and Manuel Castells. I am sure you will be having one question in your mind that society is one, then why so many theories? Probably because there are so many theories, you have to read so many theories, and that is where lies the beauty of human understanding. You take anything which is right there on your table or just see outside the window of your room where you are sitting, anything which you see, the way you look at it, the way I look at it will be completely different. And probably that is why one society or one city has been understood from multiple perspectives. We started our discussion on theory with Emile Durkheim in our previous sessions, and we have come a long way. So, from Emile Durkheim, mechanical organic solidarity, to Anthony Giddens' spatial forms, so many dimensions of urban cities we have tried to understand. I am sure you will have your own theoretical understanding about the urban cities, urban phenomenon, urban sociology. If there is anything which you think you want to share with me, please feel free to write to me on pandevini@gmail.com, and if you find any difficulty in understanding the interlinking of these concepts, even then you can write to me, and for your own self study you can again use that white paper introspection method, which will help you to understand the different elements of these theories. And I will meet you very soon with one more session in which we will also discuss about different models of urban sociology, and I am sure till then all these concepts will be very clear to you, and I shall meet you very soon with a new session, new understanding of urban sociology. Till then, be happy, be safe, take care, bye bye. Thank you.